It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnett Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. This is Freeman Michaels here.
With thought-provoking ideas and bold, what is it? How does it go?
What the heck is your name?
It's Barnett Bain.
Oh, that's right.
Delighted to be here. Spence, good to see you.
Yes. And we are here today to discuss manifesting wealth.
Right.
Now, we crafted a definition, you and I, which I want to read. And this is really important because how we define wealth becomes a very critical piece. And I think most people aren't considering what wealth is.
Well, it defines our motivations.
Right.
How we hold wealth speaks to the possibilities that we are working towards, dreaming towards, living towards, and if they are very narrowly defined, we don't serve our own best interests or the best interests of others.
And in our orientation, how we, what place, where we place things in our lives. So here's what we got. The definition of true wealth is when you know how to consciously create. It doesn't happen to you.
Yeah.
You live a life of success by certain understandings. And full responsibility allows access to resources. It snaps the illusion that we are separate and that there is something outside of us that we need in order to be complete. So the fundamental principle here is one of ownership. And what we have abdicated is our ownership, that we, many of us, and I include myself in this, I mean, you and I have talked about
We
how
may not have abdicated it. We may not have discovered it yet.
It's a good point, because I think you're right. I think it's, in order to give it up, you almost have to have a sense of what you're giving up. And for the people really caught in the illusion, it's real. I mean, we talk about the reality and the illusion. Look, if the illusion is what you know, then it's real. It's as real as anything else. So the point at which even this conversation is going to be appropriate is the point at which folks recognize that they have enough separation in their lives. They have enough what we call points of reference to understand that there is a subjectivity in reality, that we have some element of choice. So, yeah.
We're asking people to, there's a thing in the movie business that we call suspension of disbelief.
That's right.
And you know that from your actor days. The idea, put it simply, of suspension disbelief is when you create a context and you ask people to, you enroll people to go on this journey with you and to abide by the rules of the movie. So it looks like Star Wars. There's that front crawl in a galaxy far, far away, right? 3 suns, heavier gravity, and an audience says, okay, I'm there. And you inhabit that world fully. And you relate by those rules. You suspend everything you know about how we're conditioned to believe the world actually works. And so, for purposes of this...
And for those 2 hours...
For those 2 hours, you enter into...
Bingo.
You, by virtue of the portal of our imagination...
That's right.
We pretend, the rest of the time that our imagination is this little compartmentalized thing.
And we go on a particular ride. Our blood sugar and levels and everything
And it's
go,
all
and,
real.
It's very real.
And
It's
it's
very
all real.
feelable, and yes.
So, for purposes of this conversation... It would. It might help for our audience and our friends to suspend disbelief for a moment, and when we're through, we can go right back to the way it was.
We will likely,
jump right back to the old mindset. But for purposes of this, we'll suspend disbelief that that the ways of the world are as we have been conditioned to believe and to experience. And we will substitute our new rules that the outer world, let's just say that the outer world is in some way responsive to our thoughts and to our beliefs and our choices and our decisions and our attitudes and our feelings, that it is in some way responsive. Let's
That's the first precept, that we have to really establish that there is the possibility that the outer world is responsive.
And that
to
these things are causal. And when we go to sleep at night and we have night dreams, for instance, I don't think anybody at this point disputes, or that scientists or psychologists, not that I hold those to be the high priests of my experience, but many in the culture do. People don't dispute anymore that their night dreaming appears to be a function, a product of thought, belief, choice, decision, attitude, and feeling. So, likewise, we're for purposes of this discussion, likewise our outer world, and that reality is modulated, shaped, crunched down, juiced out, twisted left, twisted right, through things like desire and expectation and imagination. Those are resources.
Okay, this is the piece. We want to start talking about resources because we think resources are things. It's something, again, within the programmed belief structure that basically that we're calling things such as gold or oil or natural gas, whatever, we're calling them resources, and we're projecting onto them. So, for example, gold is something we say is beautiful. We're projecting beauty onto gold. We're determining that's beautiful, and we're valuing it at a higher level than we might value, this piece of wood, whatever. And in the same context, the energy, we look at oil or natural gas as being resources of energy. And what you and I hold is that the resources are not those things. This is simply what we attach our ideas to. In fact, something we said before is the energy crisis is not actually outside of us. We'll never resolve the outer crisis until we actually resolve the inner crisis. And so, look, there is a pushback when we say this. Folks are like, well, wait a minute, and it's hard to imagine. But it's interesting. The minute go ahead.
Suspension of disbelief.
That's right.
We made a
an agreement with our audience.
We made a contract. We
all right.
entered into an agreement going in.
Right.
That that we would.
You're along for this ride, so just stay with us.
Ride, and so in a galaxy far, far away.
That's right. In Freeman and Barnett's galaxy.
That's right.
The entire external experience is simply a reflection of the internal. It's interesting, too. We'll talk a bit about money, though that's not totally what we're talking about here. In fact, in some very real ways, it's not at all what we're talking about. But we talked in the last conversation we had about money. We had D.C. Cordova, and you and I talked a little bit afterwards about how money really acts as a mirror. It simply reflects back to us all kinds of various pieces of our personal puzzle that we ultimately have projected onto the money. We've made the money about something that isn't inherently about that. It just is for the individual who's going through that. So similarly, when we talk about resources, we are looking outside of ourselves for something that in fact represents beauty, or it represents where we can get energy, or it represents whatever. And in fact, the work is to turn that inwardly and begin to source and resource from a more profound reservoir.
Well, you hit it, I think, for me, you hit it right on the nose when you say, is it the nose or the head?
I don't know.
You don't hit people on the nose, right? You hit it on the head. I don't know that feels any better.
I think they're talking about a nail.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's okay.
You have banged the nail.
but the nose is really kind of... No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it is about sourcing.
Yes.
First, you source it. When you source it authentically, when you source it properly within first, then it can be resourced as an externalized expression, as a symbol of something that is sourced inside. It's an inside job.
It's an inside job. So let's move very quickly into, because I know we have stuff we want to cover, and I want to move very quickly into this notion of volume. That success, our ability, that success can be measured in volume, in capacity, right? And I love the way, Barnett, in the past you've illustrated this. So I want to come back because, last time we talked about this, we just didn't get enough time. We said we got to come back to the same conversation with DC Cordova. It was actually when you and I were talking afterwards, we started getting into this, and we're like, this is a whole show. Now, it may or not be a whole show, but the piece that
maybe it's a half a show.
Yeah, well, no,
maybe it's 2 minutes of a show.
What it suggests is more than a show. It's more than a show. It's really an orientation. I go back to that word. It's an orientation to understand where we're bumping up against our own limitations as expressed. We talked about it in terms of a construct. The glass walls, the glass ceiling is where we bump up against something. And so we're talking about success in terms of volume. And so there's 3 pieces, and I'm going to let you talk more about this, but I'll lead in by saying height is the size of it. That's the magnitude. Width is the domain. In other words, how many ways can it get expressed? And the depth is the emotional ownership. Are we afraid of losing it? So let's do this in terms of starting with height, the size of it. So explain
this is a metaphor that that I first heard from a very, very dear friend of mine. So I'm sure he's not going to mind us borrowing it. And he calls it the success box or the success cube. And as you say,
do you want to mention who that is?
The height of it is refers to the magnitude.
Right.
The magnitude of this Donald Trump. Let's use him as an example. There is this substantial success around being a financier. The width of it has to do with with how expansive that success is, in how many domains of life. Our lives break down into so many, if you look at it as a pie chart, there is certainly financial life and economic life, and there's love life and family and hobbies and spirituality and leisure time, and there are so many, personal health, and there are so many community service. There are so many slices of that pie, and to the degree that there is success, that there is achievement, that there is satisfaction, that there is this kind of energy across the board in many slices of that pie.
Many expressions. There's many different ways to express it. And so let me track back for a second. So, for example, in the height, we've talked many times about being conflicted. To the degree we're not conflicted, then the possibilities open up. And in the sense of magnitude, Donald Trump has no conflict with having lots of whatever.
Well, he has no conflict with having lots of in this particular expression.
Exactly.
Now,
exactly.
I don't know Donald Trump.
I don't know him either.
So I don't know whether he is equally successful in his personal life, in his family life, in his love life, if his health is equally successful, if he's successful in his community, if he is equally successful in terms of his relationship with his spirituality or his consciousness or his religious, however it is. There are so many other domains of expression that relates to the width of the box. And then the third metric is the depth of the box. And the depth of the box refers to the quality of the experience that is derived from having that success. Is it a success? If it's a very shallow success, then the wall will be very, very shallow.
And we're always scared of losing it.
We're always scared of losing it. It's not. It's a clutching. There's a hanging on to it, and there's a sense that one really doesn't know how they achieved it, or a sense that they don't. People hold it so closely they don't give of it. So, what is the quality? Is there a sense of prosperity that one really enjoys one's success, one really enjoys one's health, one enjoys one's hobbies, or time they spend in the garden? That is the degree to which there is depth to having a wonderful relationship with gardening, or with being in finance or in business, or the quality of, I know your relationship, for instance, with jazz. Your wife is beautiful and rich, and there is a depth of success in that. So these metrics, when you put them all together, you can get sort of a sense of one's life experience. You you can have an image, and the subconscious loves to play in images. You have this image of a cube, and you can begin to work in that. You begin to get a sense of, well, how big is my cube? What is it made of? Do I want to raise the ceiling? Do I want to push back the walls? Do I want to push out the back wall?
Now, it's interesting because you've already jumped ahead to the way you and I talk about this in the sense of how do I want to? Do I want to? That this idea of wanting to, first, it connotates that we have some control, or some dominion, I should say. And you and I both believe we do. Through
dominion as opposed to control.
I don't mean control. I slipped
that.
on that. No, and we will get back to that in a second. But here's the piece I want to touch upon first, because actually some of the other things you mentioned are really important, and we want to get into those. But the success piece that we see imbalances where people have a certain amount of permission for success in a particular area of their lives, and they see, and I don't know Mr. Trump, but and he may not be the right example, but there's clearly people who have a certain capacity in one area, but clearly an imbalance in other areas. They're limited. And then you see someone, I think of Branson, for example,
Richard Branson.
Yeah, Richard Branson, who has all these various expressions, which is so
I think
brilliant.
You're making a distinction here between success and prosperity. I mean, prosperity.
Go ahead.
People can be very, very, very successful without having any prosperity at all. Prosperity is a different experience. It's a quality of being able to thoroughly enjoy.
That's it.
One's success.
Yeah, that's actually where I want to go. So it's brilliant. Keep going. You've led us right into the next piece of the puzzle.
I mean, people that have a huge a magnitude of success. And are unable to enjoy that success, workaholics, or there's so many manifestations of that kind of relationship with success.
Which actually we talk in terms of kind of scarcity psychology versus an abundance.
Scarcity psychology, or people who sometimes use their success as a way to have in lieu of their net worth, personal worth, they settle for net worth.
Right.
So
exactly.
they use it as a virtual reality. That is not a successful. That is not a prosperous, juicy relationship with success. Another measure of this is abundance.
Well,
abundance is a kind of an expression of prosperity. People become abundant when, to the degree that they are able to share their successes. If you're a loving person, as you are an incredibly loving and attentive person to your friends and to your clients, to our audience. The degree to which you are able to share your love is the degree to which you are truly prosperous with your success.
Yes.
You're truly abundant with your success. You're not operating from a feeling of that I have to clutch this, I have to hoard this. You know that the more that you extend yourself and the more generous and gracious you are with your success, whether it's love success or financial success, this speaks to some of the wisdoms around tithing and these kinds of traditions that arise out of an understanding that when you are giving, you can only give out of a consciousness of a sense of self that revolves around this energy of being abundant.
And the same would be true in a different way of receiving. You can only receive to the degree which you feel deserving. That this is actually a very important balance, that we have a level of something we feel that we genuinely have to offer in the world. And then the ability to receive is rich.
That's great.
And lots of folks really bump up against that. I mean,
I
I'll
have
raise
bumped
my
up for
hands.
that. I have bumped up for that for most of my life.
Yeah.
Most of my life has been a reaction to an acceptance that I'm deserving.
Yeah, we've ducked a couple compliments in our lives.
One or two.
Yeah, 'cause it's like,
One
whoa,
or two, not me.
Please, no.
One or two.
Yeah.
So this thing about deserving, and it is again a casualty of the way we experience culture widely, broadly, and at home and in our schools and in our various traditions.
And our friend DC Cordova calls it deservability, the ability to deserve, to feel like you deserve something. That was her word.
There's conditioning to feel that I'm not enough. I'm
That's
not
it.
enough, and so I have to. First, I'm not getting enough as children.
Right.
Little children, they never get enough. Mommy,
Right.
I want more. You're never getting enough. You're always looking at your friend. Your piece is bigger than my piece. I'm not getting enough, and then we get a little bit. We grow a little bit, and we're a little bit older. We hit kind of adolescence, and now it's not about am I getting enough. It's am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I tall enough? Am I thin enough? Am I smart enough? If I just had this skill, if I could just be a rock star, if I could just be a hedge fund operator, if I just had yellow hair, whatever you choose to hang it on, this thing that I am not good enough, and an abundance arises out of the certain kind of maturity that comes when you own I am enough.
That's it.
And out of I am enough comes the experience of deservability. Because all these other things, implicit in these other models, you're not deserving. You have to struggle for deserving. You have to prove deserving. You have to earn deservability. If I could just make partner in the firm, then I will deserve to have this, that, or the other thing in my life. And deservability is innate.
Yeah.
It's a gift. We come in with it, just as a tree, a flower, a bird, an eagle. They are innately deserving, and these they're not trying to prove to themselves and to the world that that eagle has a right to soar over my house.
So you blew past like 3 of the points I was going to make, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm blowing your whole day.
No, it's good.
We'll go home early.
No, that's right. The show early. Everyone can tune
Fast
back
rapid.
They can tune back into the station that plays Eagles all day long. Or Def Leppard, right? Yeah. Okay. So, so what you did, Barnett, which is brilliant, is you blew past the construct, the ideas that we bought into, and you've gone into an innate deservability, an innate connection that many of us have lost track of, and even those of us that get that, okay, there's something to tap into here. That doesn't mean we're in it all the time. Again, I go back to the idea that there's an illusion, and we know it's an illusion, but it's still our illusion. So it makes it real. It grabs our attention.
It's a paradox.
It is a paradox. It is. Is it?
It's a pair of ducks.
And one of the things, thanks. One of the things we've talked about a lot is rather than either or, it's a both and.
We talked about that?
So many times.
Really? Isn't that the first time ever?
Keep saying it. Yeah. No, that it is both and. So we actually, those of us that are doing this work, and if you're listening on some level and you're still listening, you haven't changed channels to the Eagle station, you're probably
totally doing this.
Either
work.
suspending the disbelief,
even
or
if you're
work.
listening to this because your friend wants to listen to this, you're still listening to it.
No, that's right. That's right. So what we're talking about is a reservoir that is ours by birth. We don't have to do anything to earn it. There's nothing other than the consciousness, the awareness. And it's interesting because the process of this is going to be tricky language, but I'm going to just do my best. Let's call claiming it. I don't know if that's the right word, but it is this because it's not a doing process. It's allowing. It's discovering.
It's willingness.
As
opposed to will.
That's right.
It's a willingness.
That's right. It has a
willingness
quality to it.
Be discovered and to own the beingness of being discovered.
And it's yearning to be discovered. It is something that has, this is the spiritual conversation. It's this, we talk about it in terms of love, that it's a field and it's there, it's ours, and yet we spend so much time detached from it, and yet the opportunity to will it in, to be willing to allow it in, to embrace it is always there. It's always there. And what happens, and again, this is something we've talked about a lot, is that we have touchstones. We have these moments where, okay, we've touched it. We've recognized it. We recognize, put back together. We figured out the truth about who we are, who we really are. And yet, it's interesting because one of the things we've talked about a lot is I'm going to jump into the story conversation. See, it's always so loose, and I plan we're talking about one thing and we wander into the other because they all fit together. The first story is our family of origin, our conditioning that we buy into because we have no choice. We're little beings. We come in, and yet some part of us may hold on to these truths about who we really are, and along the way it's possible to have touchstones and so forth and so on. But then the second story we call our triumph story is where we actually begin to separate from that first story. We individuate, we expand beyond the box, beyond that first box into this new us that gets expressed in various ways and so forth and so on. And along the way, in that context, there are these points of reference, these moments, these glimpses, these experiences that come in that suggest that there is a perception, that there is a reality, if you will.
That there's more.
That there's more. Thank you. And it's in that third story that we begin to tap into something that is the true wealth. That we
become an expression of the more. We become a vehicle through which the more expresses into the world, through us, through our work, through our impact on the world. We reimagine the world. Yep. That is an esoteric...
No, it's not, because I think in very real terms... I mean, yes, it is. Okay, I'll take that back. For some folks, it's very esoteric.
At the same time, it's very, very real.
It's very real. You know, I want to go back to something we talked about and expand upon it, because this idea of the energy crisis, or any kind of crisis, where a system, this flawed command and control system, the idea that we're trying to control things and that we're trying to work within this perception that is off in a particular way, in a very real way, substantive way, that the system's falling apart. One of the things that I'm aware of, I mean, this may track us back to the money conversation again, is that the system...
We're ADD here on this.
We're so ADD, but we'll pick up all the pieces.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, good. That the money systems... that are this first and second story money systems, that they are inherently flawed, and that they will likely come apart. There will be economic crises. There will be moments in time where these things, these constructs that we're wholly invested in, disintegrate. To the degree that we begin to operate on a more profound level, to the degree that we relate to wealth from this different perspective that we're talking about, the impact of the system falling apart.
The transition from the
paradigm
old
to
model to the emergent model.
Thank you.
The transition becomes gentled.
That's it.
So that's it. I think you said that.
That's the big offer.
Beautifully laid out.
It's the big offer. It's the big offer right now.
The flaw piece. I'm not sure that it's a. I'm not so sure that it's a flaw.
Yeah.
As much as it is a stage. It's just a stage in our growth. I mean, it certainly hasn't been a flaw for me for all these many years. It's been. How I identified with life. It was the only playbook I had.
Yes.
And I am very grateful that there are, in what has been like a concrete playbook, there are cracks and light is starting to show through there, and that I have finally given up pretending that there are no cracks in the playbook. And now I am rushing full speed into those cracks, trying to prise those cracks apart, trying to slip through those cracks. Whatever is coming, bring it.
Yes.
But I don't so much see it as a flaw as I do a developmental stage that, you know, a seed is not flawed. It's just not. It's not a plant.
Yeah.
So we're into some sort of emergent experience.
That's it.
And we are shifting handbooks, rule books, and operating code in real time.
Yep.
It's not like, I'm going to leave the office and in the morning this higher radio station is going to enter the modern era. Not to say, folks, that we're not in the modern era here.
Spence is banging on the board right now. Come on!
Kicking the board. But it's not happening that way. It's happening before our very eyes, in real time. We're lucid as it's happening, and it can be either the most terrifying of times or the most exciting times.
Speaking of real time, we didn't take a commercial break.
That's
awfully real. We snapped the suspended disbelief. All right, so we're gonna suspend the suspended disbelief. Pay some bills. When we get back, we'll be talking more about this very topic here on Cutting Edge Consciousness. Stay with us.